Hello everyone, this is Taryn with Wonderfully Made Handcrafting, and today I'm showing you how I customize my DIY Dori Kit from ByTheWell4God for the newest kit, the Heavenly Host. Now, this is a new DIY kit from ByTheWell4God, and they used Kraft-Tex, which is like a fabric paper, to create these dories, and I just think they are so fun. I love customizing things. That's why I love DIY kits, is because you can kind of just make it your own. And so I really wanted to make this look a little bit more like leather. Kraft-Tex is awesome. It's this material that you can throw in your laundry and make it really soft and supple, kind of like leather. And it just has this great look to it. And so I'm dyeing it with some Distress spray stains and one Distress Oxide spray. The Distress Oxide could cover up the stained glass look, so I didn't want too much of that. And you'll see me here, this looks kind of crazy right now, but don't worry, I'm gonna kind of pull it up with my cloth, as you see right here. But for the Distress spray stains, I used Rusty Hinge to start off with to bring some warmth to the paper, and then I used tea dye, ground espresso, lost shadow, and frayed burlap. And then I did add a little bit of the oxide spray in walnut stain, and you just see me here kind of mixing that in and rubbing it into the paper, making sure it gets really down in there good. And then I'm lifting it up from the stained glass area so I don't lose that vibrancy. Obviously, it'll be a little bit more dull than it was before, simply because I'm adding that brown look to it, but I love this look. And just look at this tea dye, adding that to the cover just brings that warmth and kind of like leatheriness to this Kraft-Tex. Now, I'm not sure if you caught it beforehand, but I did spray down the Kraft-Tex with some water at first. That way the spray wouldn't just get stuck in the Kraft-Tex. I wanted that water to help move the spray and ink around, and that seemed to help a lot. Now, I also wanted to cover up the inside because you will be able to see the inside, obviously, when you open up this cover. And so now I'm just making sure I really like the cover before I move on to the next stage. So next I have this extra piece of Kraft-Tex that was sent with this kit. I'm going to use this to create a pocket for the inside of my cover and also to create a closure. So there's a lot you can do with this stuff. This product is so amazing. I've used it in the past. Last fall, actually, Shannon had sent me a little sample and I loved working with it. I'm thinking of grabbing some for myself just to have on hand because it is really fun to work with. So I ended up drying it with my heat tool to speed up the drying process. And now I'm going to work on sizing out these pockets. Now, I don't measure it too well just because I do things mostly by eye. But I believe my pockets end up being about 3 inches high. Also, about the spray stain, if you are planning on getting this cover like soaking wet in the rain, then I would, protect it with maybe a Scotch Guard. I'm not sure exactly how the Distress products would react with the Scotch Guard, but I assume if you did just a light, coat of it, it might work okay. I'm choosing not to protect mine. I didn't beforehand when I worked with Kraft-Tex, and I just, don't plan on getting my cover wet. So that's my thought on it. Maybe I should grab some Scotch Guard sometime and test it out, but I think you're going to be okay as long as you don't get everything, wet again. So anyways, I have cut out these little pockets and now I'm going to use a new embossing folder from Tim Holtz. This one is called Tapestry and it's from his fall Halloween launch. However, it is not Halloweeny at all. It is just a beautiful embossing folder. I choose to spray my Kraft-Tex first before I run it through my Big Shot, and I run it through multiple times to get a nice embossed look on all these pieces. And then I'm going to turn to my foundry wax. I have not used my foundry wax in a hot minute, and I decide to take out this one. I think it's the perfect addition to these embossed pieces. So I'm just going to squirt out a little bit of this one called Statue and use my finger to apply to all the high areas of the embossed look. Now, like I said, I haven't used Foundry Wax on one of my videos for a while now, and it is a really cool product. So if you don't know much about it, do some research. But basically what it is this liquid that you has like a viscosity that changes as you use it on your finger and roll it around on your paper. You can use it on the edges of your paper, and then it adds this really nice gilded look on wherever you place it once you heat set it with your heat gun. So as you see here, I'm adding Foundry Wax to both pockets and also these two smaller pieces. One of these pieces I'm going to use as the latch. I'm just doing both of them to see how each one comes out, but this is kind of a closer look at what that looks like. So now I'm moving on to my sewing machine. I'm so excited I got this new sewing machine so I can kind of show you what I'm doing in a video, but this is that variegated thread that I've shown on Instagram that I picked up, and I am using that with a zigzag stitch just around the edges. Now, if this was still white, you'd be able to see this thread a little bit more, and it is a really fun thread. So I kind of lose that with, the dyed Kraft-Tex, but I think it's still beautiful. I'll also add it to these pockets right here, so I'm doing that. And now we're going to assemble this. Now, I could have been more fancy and high tech and actually sewed these pockets on when I did that zigzag stitch. However, I'm not that cool, and so I decided to just use my Fabri-Tac glue and make it look like I stitched it with that zigzag stitch that I did on it by itself. So it still looks like it's stitched on, but I have the Fabri-Tac glue, which is easier for me. As I'm adding these pockets on, I'm also hiding the extra thread. With the zigzag stitch, I did knot the end of it, but I'm hiding it in that Fabri-Tac glue underneath the pocket. And now I'm working on this fun little latch. So I'm using my corner rounder and rounding both corners, or all corners of this little piece. And then I'm going to use some Fabri-Tac glue on the back side. Again, I could have sewed this on, but I decided not to. Fabri-Tac is my friend. And I am just gluing that down, holding it down there for a second to make sure it sets. And then I'm going to add a cool little latch system, kind of where you cut two pieces of the Kraft-Tex and can kind of weave that latch in so it holds it together. So here you see me marking with some pencil on where those lines need to be. I'm going to make this kind of thin so I don't lose too much of the stained glass picture that I have on here. But that pencil will just erase right off as soon as I cut this. I'm using my just regular X-Acto knife. It doesn't take much at all. I love this product. This Kraft-Tex is just so fun and easy to work with. And now you see how that kind of just threads through. I'm going to erase my pencil marks, and then I'm going to add some brads to just add some fun to this little latch. So I'm taking out my Crop-A-Dile and using the smaller side, the smaller hole punch. I know I'm a little bit off camera here, but I'm just punching 2 holes so I can easily fit those larger brads from Tim Holtz. I believe these were released earlier this year. You can also kind of ding them up with a hammer. I decided to not do that today, but I am going to add some Foundry Wax to them in a second, but I'm just laying them flat. I also could glue these down so that the little wings don't move around at all, but it doesn't bother me too much and they stay pretty much in place. So now I'm looking at it and I'm deciding I definitely want some more Foundry Wax. So I'm going to add a little bit to those brads, but also around the edges of this cover. And that's going to add that nice little gilded edge. So I'm going to go around with my finger all around the edges of this cover, and then I'll heat set it with my heat tool and it'll turn this beautiful gold. Now, alongside this Dori kit, they do give you a piece of leather that you can use to close up your journal as well. I was hoping maybe to use that to fasten my journals on the inside. I know it wouldn't be like bungee, like the bungee cord, but I was hoping maybe the leather would be long enough to do so, but it's just shy of it, I think. So I will save the leather for another project. But you can see here if it will work, if it will reach. I probably could have made it, but it seemed too close for me. So I am going to use that white bungee cord, but I didn't like how it was white. So I took out my distress paint in black soot, and this was actually way easier to dye with the distress paint than I thought it would be. It was a little bit messy, so I just kind of dropped some down and then smushed it through. Now I did pull the bungee as I was dyeing it to make sure that when it was pulled, it wasn't going to show any white. And then I dried it and it turned out great. It looks exactly like just regular black bungee kind of string. And so now it's ready to thread through my journal cover. Now, I know there are multiple ways you can string your journal cover. However, I was running out of time. My husband had brought the kids to the car wash and given me a couple hours to work on this. So I really didn't have much time to think exactly about how I wanted this tied. So I decided to just keep it simple and do 2 separate ties. So as you can see here, I'm doing one little eyelet to the next eyelet and tying that together, and that will hold my devotional. And then the second one will hold another TN. So I'm just doing it separate. You could use a really cool crisscross pattern, but I just didn't have time for that today. After that, I'll just slide my devotional and TN into this cover. Now, the kit did come with an extra TN as well, so that was a fun little extra. It's easy to slide in and out of here, and then I also have those 2 pockets that I can use to add little notes to those pockets and whatnot. So that is it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this DIY kit, and let me know what you do with yours.